Hello.
Oh, El Sonia sends her love.
Oh, El Sonia. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to be here. What? At the New York Comedy Club in Boca, Florida. It used to be Boca Raton. I am here with a genius, Evan Sayet. Evan.
A genius.
Yeah.
That's me. Here's the problem with being called a genius. It doesn't make me a genius necessarily. The other person has to be able to recognize genius. Our drinks are here.
Oh, but I can recognize genius, so it's all good.
There you go.
I first fell in love with him when I saw him on YouTube doing this speech about something about how our whole country has been brainwashed by the university system. It was for the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, it was on how the modern liberal thinks and why it is they side always with evil, failure, and wrong. And I can't... The way life works is so weird. I had given up being a Hollywood person and came out as a conservative comedian because I knew we needed that. We had ceded humor to the other side. We had ceded it to the Bill Maher's and the Jon Stewarts, and who was doing it from our side?
Yeah.
I mean, there's Dennis Miller, really, and Jackie Mason.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had been a stand-up in the past. I wasn't a conservative in the past. I was a liberal. But at this point, I decided I've got to get out in front and not cede comedy to the other side. At the same time, I started to think more seriously about my politics, and so these two tracks happened at once, my serious lectures and my comedy, and they grew from local to regional to state to regional to national, and now I was going to get my big break. I was going to Washington, D.C. I'd been asked to do my comedy at CPAC, and I was going to give a small speech to the Heritage Foundation. Well, CPAC was a fiasco. The microphone didn't work. Nobody could hear me. This was going to be the gig that everybody who's there can give me work. I can become the go-to guy for all conservative comedy if I just do a good job this night. And the microphone didn't work. Nobody could hear me. People started talking. You could hear the forks and the knives. And it was horrible. And the next day I go to the Heritage Foundation and I give this talk. And somebody puts it up on YouTube, and the next thing you know, it's a phenomenon, and that's the thing that makes me famous.
Well,
and that brought Vicky to me.
I want to know, when did you become a conservative?
All right. I call myself a 913 Republican. Right? I grew up a New York City liberal Jew. I wasn't liberal as in it was... Most Jews who are liberal aren't thinking liberals. They aren't doctrinaire liberals. They don't really know what liberalism is. They've just sort of been brainwashed into believing that Democrats are good and Republicans are evil. Democrats like people, Republicans like war. Democrats like air, Republicans pollute the air. It's not really anything you think about. It's just a given. And because life was so easy for all of us in this era.
Right.
It didn't really matter if we were right or wrong because nothing could go wrong in this world. Then those airplanes crashed into those buildings, and it wasn't so much the attacks themselves. I expected them. I didn't expect them on 9/11. I didn't know the targets, but I knew enough about the world to know that the same people who were murdering the Jews of Israel because they were the closest infidels would, when they could, come and murder the big infidel. Right. What really stunned me, I call 9/12. It's the days and the weeks and the months after 9/11, and I would hear my liberal friends try to make excuses for the terrorists. We deserved it. We provoked it. In the words of Jeremiah Wright, Barack Obama's mentor, it was the chickens coming home to roost. And the idea that the way to prevent the next attack was to be nicer to the terrorists?
Yeah.
This was insane to me, and it began me to think, how do these people think? And Vicky, I have a saying. The first time
Wait, your mouth is dry.
Thank you. How do you know?
Okay. You have a saying.
I have a saying.
Okay, I interrupted the genius. Okay. Okay, you have a saying.
I have a saying. The first time you think is the last time you're a Democrat. And for me, the first time that I had to think about my politics was to try to understand how good, decent, kind, loving, generous, otherwise smart people were supporting the murderers and actually arguing that the way to prevent the next such attack was to give them what they want. And from that kernel of thinking, it expanded and expanded, and I thought and I read and I learned and I debated and I discussed, and it became that talk that brought us together.
Aww. Well, I love the story of people who converted because, yeah, I was kind of born a Republican. Okay, tonight we're going to see Evan do conservative stand-up comedy.
In fact, you didn't tell him we are in the New York Comedy Club in Boca Raton, Florida, and we're in the back room. We're in the green room lounging. We could be anywhere. They don't know.
Yes.
We're in the Four Seasons Hotel.
See, we're waiting for the peeps to come in, and we're just hanging out because we're comedians.
This is what we do.
Yeah,
if this were Saturday Night Live 30 years ago, before you, Vicky would be on drugs and passed out. But yeah, that wasn't your era. No, you had the tame era.
I was in the Just Say No era.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I was dyslexic, so it was Just Say On.